Hey there, welcome to SI Now. It's Friday, October 14th, and I'm Maggie Gray. Thursday night football strikes again. The Chargers, who had blown 3 fourth-quarter leads already this season, finally finished a game strong and against a division rival, bringing their head coach to tears. While the Broncos, playing without their head coach Gary Kubiak, who was sidelined with health issues, looked like one of the best teams in the league through 3 weeks, have now lost 2 games in the span of 5 days. So will Thursday night's game set the tone for a wild Week 6? Here's Ryan Aselta and Super Bowl champion Chris Canty with a look ahead. Hey, guys.
All right, Maggie, let's start on first down here, where Colin Kaepernick will start on Sunday against the Bills. Now, Kaepernick and the Niners head to Buffalo to take on an all-of-a-sudden red-hot Buffalo team. Chris, what's the odds Kaepernick gets this job now, heads on the road cross-country to take on Rex Ryan and the Bills, and comes up with a win?
Well, I think it's a pretty good chance, and I think the guys in that San Francisco 49ers locker room, they're looking for something to rally around, something to energize them, and a change at quarterback position could be just the trick. Colin Kaepernick, we know he has a dynamic ability on the field as a dual-threat quarterback. He's an explosive playmaker. When he's given the opportunity to utilize his skill set, do what he does best, Chip Kelly's offense lends itself to those potential opportunities with zone read, running schemes for the quarterback, utilizing Carlos Hyde, that ground game, getting that thing going, and then trying to get the ball out to his playmakers, Jeremy Curley, Torrey Smith, who's a player that they need to get involved. He's been a ghost in that offense. So I think there's the opportunity for that. There's a chance that this could happen. I really like the idea of this change right now because the 49ers need to see what they have in Colin Kaepernick, and they need to make the determination, is he going to be a part of the future for this franchise moving forward? I think everybody needs to be able to see that so everybody can have that stability at the quarterback position. Everybody needs to know the direction of the team and Colin Kaepernick, whether he's going to be the guy or not.
Be interesting. A lot of eyeballs going to be on this game all of a sudden in Buffalo that wouldn't have been watching before Kaepernick was named starter. All right, second down. Chargers beat the Broncos on Thursday Night Football. Broncos 2 straight losses here. Offense really struggling. Chris, what do you make of this? What's going on with the champs right now?
Well, I think it's much ado about nothing. Short week, they're on the road. They're without their head coach, but more importantly, they're without their offensive play caller in Gary Kubiak because he's dealing with some health issues. So I think this is a situation where it's the perfect storm in a negative way for the Denver Broncos. But the champs, they have an awesome defense, a dominant defense. That'll come back into form. I think the offense and Trevor Siemian, once Gary Kubiak comes back, is able to get in the play calling rhythm, able to establish that run game, which is something that he likes to lead with. I think they'll be better off. Last night, Trevor Siemian, when you call him 50 pass plays and only 16 runs, that's a problem. So I don't think that's how the Denver Broncos want to play. They want to lean on C.J. Anderson in the ground game. So they'll get back to that when Coobs comes back. But it's a situation where the San Diego Chargers were a desperate team. They needed to get a win. They had a bunch of close, tough losses, and I think just last night was their night to get a win. The Broncos are still the cream of the AFC West. They'll get back to being the Denver Broncos that we know. This is just a tough situation for them because they're without their head coach and their play caller.
What do you think? Did the Chargers save Mike McCoy's job with that win last night?
Well, they saved it for this week. Now they got to go back and do it next week in week 7.
Never much security for NFL coaches,
It's week to week in the NFL. You know how it is.
All right, third down, premier game of the weekend is at Lambeau Field. Packers host the Cowboys. Who do you like this one? Green Bay wins against the Giants a week ago. Not all that impressively, though, and the Cowboys keep rolling with Dak.
Well, it's an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. And I mean that in terms of talking about the running game because both of these teams rely on their running game. The Green Bay Packers, their run defense, they're number 1 in the National Football League, only allowing opponents 2 yards a carry. And the Dallas Cowboys, they're the number 1 rush offense in the NFL with the leading rusher in the NFL, Ezekiel Elliott. The Cowboys, how they want to play is being able to control the time of possession, control the tempo of the game, and that starts with that offensive line being able to dominate at the point of attack, and that keeps them on the field. That leads to them getting first downs equal touchdowns, and that's why they're able to score points. But also it keeps their defense, that Cowboys defense, off of the field with all of the holes in that defense, all of the deficiencies. And that's going to be important in this game because of Aaron Rodgers. And we all know his ability as a quarterback, being able to dissect defenses. If he gets enough opportunities, if he gets enough times out there on that football field with all the issues that they're having on the defensive side of the ball, the Dallas Cowboys, he's going to pick them apart. And so I think it's important for the Dallas Cowboys to be able to establish that run game to keep their defense off of the field.
Lacey nursing an ankle ankle injury should be a big questionable going into this weekend for the Pack. All right, fourth down. Showdown in Seattle. The 3-1 Seahawks host the 4-1 Falcons. Chris, would a win for Atlanta on the road in Seattle kind of put to bed all the doubters out there?
Yeah, it would put all the.
You were one of them. You were one of them, man.
I remain one of them. I'm not buying the Atlanta Falcons just yet. We saw this movie before last year. Through the first 7 games, they started out 6-1. How'd that season end up? They finished 8-8. So for me, I want to see the Atlanta Falcons go out there in Seattle and do it. Now, Seattle Seahawks, they're coming off of a bye week. The #1 defense in the National Football League. They've been that way for the last 4 or 5 seasons. I want to see Seattle replicate that success on the offensive side of the ball against an elite defense, another elite defense. Back-to-back West Coast trips for the Atlanta Falcons, too. So I'm just saying, Kyle Shanahan, he's got to be very creative this week going up against Chris Richards and that Seattle Seahawks defense.
How about Russell Wilson? What type of problems can he pose for this Atlanta defense?
Well, Russell Wilson, when he's healthy, he's a dual-threat quarterback, but I think he wants to win from the pocket. The problem with that is because he has so much mobility, he's able to extend plays, and that's where your bigger plays in the passing game come, when your quarterback can buy time, because the greatest defensive backs, they can't cover forever. So those receivers have an opportunity to have more time to uncover downfield, and Russell Wilson is a master at being able to find those guys. He scrambles, keeping his eyes downfield to make sure that he can get those big chunk plays. So, he's definitely going to be trouble for the Atlanta Falcons. I wouldn't be surprised to see them utilize Keanu Neal in some kind of capacity as a spy on Russell Wilson, just to make sure that they have somebody that's responsible for the quarterback when he breaks out of the pocket. So he eliminates some of that time for Russell Wilson to find those guys downfield.
Wilson looked good against the Jets. Remember all those concern over the Seahawks after the loss to the Rams? Well, a win over the Falcons would probably put that to bed as well. Maggie, over to you.
Thank you, Ryan. Well, it took a while, 4 hours and 32 minutes, but the Dodgers outlasted the Nationals and will now face the very well-rested Chicago Cubs on Saturday. And I'm pleased to be joined by a Chicago Cubs super fan. He's also an actor, most famously from Mad Men and Shameless. Joel Murray is here. Hi, Joel.
Hi, it's good. I'm not as rested as the Cubs are, but it's good to be in New York again.
Well, take the temperature of Cubs fans right now. Are you allowed to be, confident at this point?
No, never. And, I was the 8th inning, we were at Harry Carey's, and I switched to the Rally Patron. And that 9th inning the other night was so phenomenal. And the bartender kept bringing me, as the Cubs would get one more run, he'd bring me another Rally Patron. It's working. I think it's working. And but the faces went from completely dejected to elation, and I still have very little voice because I was screaming so loud at that point. But no overconfidence. We're Cub fans.
The good thing about the Rally Patron, though, is by the time you get to the end of the game, who knows who won or lost anyways, right?
Worst comes to worst, you don't care. So.
You said you were at Harry Carey's. Do you have an impersonation of Harry Carey? Do you know what it would be like if the Cubs won the World Series? What would Harry, if he was still alive?
It would be the most fantastic day in history. Dutchie and I had a wedding, but this would top that as well.
It's like he's in the room.
Yeah.
Joel. That's just unbelievable. I hate to bring this up to any Cubs fan, but today marks the 13th anniversary of Steve Bartman.
I was there. I was about
salute. Tell us about that.
I was about 22 seats away. It was a foul ball, and it blew back towards the edge. You never thought Alou had a chance at it, and all of a sudden it kept blowing back, and from where I was, you couldn't see Bartman, but boy, what a horrible thing he went through. And I saw, in the middle of the night, my nephew and I were on the couch, and we woke up, and the older newscaster on WGN or something, it might have been Len O'Connor, they showed the footage of them bringing Bartman down and around, and he's coming around, and he goes, well, where's where's Jack Ruby when you need him?
Oh, no.
And we laughed so hard, and I've tried to find that footage since then, and somebody burned it. But you can't, say that at that point. But
Absolutely
somebody
not.
should shoot this kid.
Oh, poor Bartman. Have you forgiven him?
I've forgiven him. It was a foul ball. The wind brought it back. I still blame the fact that Bernie Mac sang the "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" during the stretch. It was a lifelong White Sox fan, and he said, let's hear it for the champions, let's hear it for the champions, let's hear it for the champions. And the entire stadium turned to each other and said, did he just jinx this thing or what? And right next,
That's the lesser known sort of PS to that whole Bartman story. Do you believe in the curse?
No, I don't believe in the curse.
Hey, are you convincing yourself while you're saying
I think
that?
Cub fans have to learn to win and get beyond this. I remember I was there the night after when Kerry Wood had just hit a home run, and I was sitting with season ticket holders, and they're going, "Yeah, it's been a pretty good run. It's been a good year. It's been a good run." But they were sure we were going to lose, and we were still winning at that point. But that's you got to get past that mentality that, damn it, we're good enough.
Well, it looks like this team at least has that mentality. Let's take a look at your famous brother, Bill Murray, spotted in the crowd the other day wearing this T-shirt. I'm sure you've seen this, Joel. I ain't afraid of no goats. That's obviously play on his Ghostbusters past. Does Bill believe in curses?
I think that's a few years ago, back when he used to believe in curses, but I think he's gotten over that. I think he had on a Jimmy John's hat the other night. I think that picture's a few years old.
Is it?
But yeah, I don't think he believes in it. I think somebody probably gave him that shirt on the way in the ballpark, if I know him.
Put it on. Okay,
Yeah.
Paint the pictures for us. You, Bill, your brother Brian, say you're watching a game, sports bar, at the stadium, at home on the couch. Who's the rowdiest?
Who's the rowdiest? Probably me. It's funny watching games with Billy because often they're delayed and he'll nod in and out. And I'm probably the liveliest, but Billy was really riling people up the other night and getting people involved and for that comeback win. And I don't know. If it comes down to the World Series, we're all going to be absolutely insane. The entire city's going to be insane.
That's amazing. So Bill Murray's fallen asleep during the games, and you're the one who's on the edge of your seat on the couch watching every ball and strike.
Yeah. Well, he knows he can rewind. He's got the remote in his hand while he's sleeping, and you're at his whim.
What's your relationship like with the players on this current Cubs roster? Have you befriended any of these guys
It's
or
so
Joe
funny.
Madden?
I sang Sweet Home Chicago at a place called Stanley's where they have live karaoke with Rizzo a while back.
Amazing.
My son works at a bar across the street from the hotel where Joe Madden lives in town, and Joe holds court and has coffee there every morning. You can go hang out and talk with Joe Madden, and he's absolutely the coolest guy. We were down in Atlanta, and he joined us. My brother was staying at the same hotel as the Cubs, and we had great seats, and we went in the dugout beforehand. But Joe came up, and he sat down with us, and we had a couple bottles of wine with him, and he's so great to listen to. It's kind of that Zen Phil Jackson feel when you're around him. He's cool as could be. And then I was just in San Diego for the Cubs series, and Rossi comes up to me. David Ross goes, Joe, it's great you're here. Oh, cool. And my buddy David Ross just came up and said,
Okay.
yeah, I've been to a few games this year.
Yeah, but Joel, then on the flip side, do you ever get the players, maybe like a Ross or a Rizzo, who say, I'm a huge fan of Mad Men. I watched you play Fred Rumson. I'm a huge fan of your brother. Do they ever fan out over the Murray brothers?
Well, over Billy. When we went in the dugout in Atlanta, they were.
How do they act around him?
I often just stand in the shadow in those kind of situations, but they're big fans of Billy's. And there was some people actually, could I get a picture with you? And I put a picture on Twitter, but it's Joe Madden talking to Billy, and I just quoted, no, you're awesome. No, you're awesome.
No.
And
I love your work. No, I love your work.
I love your work. But it was a mutual admiration society. It was pretty cool.
Of course, for that long run on Mad Men that you had, you shared many scenes with John Hamm, massive St. Louis Cardinals fan that he is. So is he rooting for your Cubs now that his Cardinals have been eliminated, or do you think he's kind of throwing his hand in the curse side of things and wants the Cubs to stay winless?
He's such a sweet guy. He's such a nice guy. I would think he would root for the Cubs. I mean, even I will root for the Packers when the Bears are mathematically eliminated. I think you got to root for your own division, right? But he's such a great guy. I'm going to say yes, but I don't know. He's on to the St. Louis Blues at this point.
Okay, and another season, and the calendar just keeps turning. Of course, you guys, meaning the Murray brothers, you're known as being huge Cubs fans, but also huge golfers. Not only Bill's iconic role in Caddyshack, but you yourself, and wearing this beautiful shirt that you designed, right?
This is one of our new shirts, the William Murray Golf Line, and it's a relationship we have with the Chive, and we were kind of curious a few years back, all these Bill Murray shirts, the black shirts with the white-faced Bill Murray photos, and it got to be, they were so prevalent. At first, Bill was flattered, and then all of a sudden it's like, we should kind of check into who these guys are and what's going on with this. and we met the Resig brothers, and they're from Fort Wayne, Indiana, and they're Cub fans, and they grew up caddies, and they're really super generous guys, and we kind of called them on it and said, Bill was just wondering, maybe something for the effort,
Yeah,
what I mean,
right.
something. And rather than paying us, or Billy, they donated a big amount of money to our charity, the foundation that we have, and then have been big supporters and sponsors of our golf tournament that we have down in St. Augustine every year. And they're great guys, and they're a lot of fun, and they bring a lot of good-looking women to the party. So we've got no
So they
problem
can
with that.
stay.
Yeah. But after a while, after 2 years, all of a sudden, Kerry Michaels was one of their employees, got into a golf cart and goes, "Can I give you a 10-minute pitch on this thing?" And we were actually thinking about doing a Murray Brothers golf line ourselves, and she got in and showed us this whole deck of the William Murray stuff she had. And wow, my brothers are, we're not the most ambitious guys. It would take us 10 years to even get that done. So it kind of melded really quickly, and they come up with these fabulous designs, and it's quirky stuff. This is kind of an homage to the Cinderella story.
Yeah,
and
Cinderella story.
Billy-
18th green, Augusta.
Billy whacking mums and
Yeah.
the occasional
And
exploding one.
And you also have a Cubs themed shirt as well.
We had a Cub theme pinstripe that sold out in like 8 hours, and I don't know. They have rabid Bill Murray fans with this Chive website, and millions and millions of people that are hitting this every day. So it's much better than my followers on Facebook or whatever. It's a better distribution center. But
Okay, so tell us where these Cubs fans, Caddyshack fans, can get this attire.
it's all going to be out on the 20th, and it's WilliamMurrayGolf.com or on the Chivery, the Chive's e-commerce website.
It's fantastic. The shirts look great.
It's good stuff. They're
Good
really good.
conversation starter, too.
I walked about 30 blocks in it, and no perspiration at all. It's just dry as a bone.
Listen, you look like A-list, which is exactly what you are. Joe Murray, it's so great to see you. And listen, congratulations on what the Cubs have achieved thus far.
It's very
and
exciting
good
to
luck.
see that and that next to each other.
Good
Very
luck
exciting.
at LCS. Wishing you the best against the Dodgers.
All right,
Thank
pleasure.
you. All
Thanks for having me.
Coming up, our fantasy football expert Michael Beller gives us this week's stardom and situm list. But first, here's a look at some of this weekend's action across the sports landscape. This is SI Now's Weekend Drive presented by Toyota. Let's go places. We'll kick off with college football in a top 10 matchup between the Buckeyes and the Badgers. Ohio State head coach Urban Meyer will bring the best offense in the Big Ten into Madison to face a Wisconsin team that's not only balanced, but coming off a bye week.
I think Coach Chris, I don't know him very well, but I can push play and see it's one of the best coach teams in the United States of America. It's very good players. They have their niche. Average size is 6'6" or 6'8" in the offense line, 315 pounds. I think that's what it was 2 years ago. It's just consistent. They have an excellent running back, very efficient pass game, and then on defense, they're outstanding. They're what they've been. So it's amazing that they've had coach transition. They've changed defense coordinators. It's very similar defense. It's Wisconsin's defense. And I like that. I like the fact that we changed coordinators on offense. It's Ohio State's offense. So Wisconsin, you got to give the leadership a lot of credit. One of the best teams in America.
Ohio State has owned Wisconsin lately, winning 7 out of their last 8 against the Badgers. Next, we travel northwest to Seattle, where we have a battle between two one-loss teams. Matt Ryan leads the league with over 1,700 passing yards, but doesn't have Richard Sherman too worried.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be a fun matchup for our defense, fun matchup to go against their offense. They throw the ball a whole lot. Matt Ryan's been having a phenomenal year, so we're going to have a good time with that challenge as well.
Sparks will fly. The Falcons' offense and the Seahawks' defense both rank #1 in the NFL. Lastly, we end in Cleveland, where the Indians are back in the ALCS for the first time since 2007. The Tribe's Corey Kluber will take the mound in Game 1 against a Blue Jays team that scored 22 runs in their sweep over the Rangers.
They're a solid lineup 1 through 9. It's not just, 2, 3, 4 guys that can hurt you. I mean, everybody in that lineup is a good hitter, and they have a lot of power, but like you said, they're also patient. So you got to go out there and execute pitches. There's not really a magic formula. I mean, just like we asked about with Boston, it's not a magic formula. They're just a really good offense. So we all have our work cut out for us.
Kluber Cade 8 Blue Jays when he faced them back in August. He'll look to continue his success in Game 1. And that's what's in store for this weekend.
With just 2 teams on bye this week, most fantasy owners will have a full cupboard from which to build their lineups. Let's start finding the right ingredients in the Week 6 edition of Stardom or Sit 'em. Alex Smith is a must-start for his owners. The Raiders have been dreadful against the pass this season, allowing the 3rd most points per game to quarterbacks and most points to receivers. They've also surrendered 12 passing touchdowns and 8.85 yards per attempt. Smith has a couple of huge games to his name this season, and he has always been capable of taking advantage of a bad passing defense. He's a top 10 play at the position this week. Stay away from Carson Wentz. Washington has been surprisingly tough on QBs this season, holding them to 16.44 points per game. Just one quarterback has put up a top 15 week against Washington, and that was Ben Roethlisberger. As good as Wentz has been, he doesn't demand your attention when faced with a challenging matchup, especially on the road. Expect the Eagles to feature more Ryan Matthews than Wentz, with Washington's run defense struggling mightily this year. At running back, keep on rolling with Tevin Coleman. The Falcons always find ways to get him involved, last week lining him up as a receiver more often than he was in the backfield. Coleman caught 4 passes for 132 yards and a touchdown in the win over Denver. Seattle does have better personnel for handling a player like Coleman in coverage, but you know Atlanta is going to give him 12 or so opportunities at minimum. His owner should take those chances regardless of the matchup. Jeremy Hill remains a touchdown or bust player, and that's not someone you want in your lineup on a regular basis. He needs to sit for his owners this week in a matchup with the Patriots. Hill's skill set doesn't translate favorably to a game where the Bengals will likely need to score somewhere in the high 20s to have a shot at an upset. He's also dealing with a shoulder injury that will have him at less than 100% on Sunday. John Brown has made himself the number 2 receiver in Arizona, and he can raid the Jets' defense this week. The Jets have allowed the 2nd most points per game to receivers this season. They've been burned by stars like A.J. Green and also Rands like Marquise Goodwin. Brown is just the sort of receiver they've been able to slow down this year. With Carson Palmer set to return from his concussion, Brown should once again thrive. He's an easy wide receiver too, with top 20 upside at the position. Allen Hurns hasn't found any consistency this season, and that makes him a sit against the Bears this week. After a breakout 2015, Hurns has yet to catch more than 5 passes or top 80 yards in a game this year. His chances are down as well, as he's averaging just 6.75 targets per game. Chicago has been a league average pass defense and has kept DeAndre Hopkins, Dez Bryant, and Marvin Jones relatively quiet this year. Hurns slots as no better than a wide receiver 4. Zach Miller is turning into one of the safest plays at the wasteland we formerly called tight end. The Bears starter belongs in your lineup this week. He has at least 70 yards or a touchdown in 3 straight games, averaging 12.07 standard league points per game in that window. Bears-Jaguars has an attractive over-under of 47.5 points, and Brian Hoyer has loved throwing to his starting tight end since taking the helm in Chicago. Jason Witten is just as much a 6th offensive lineman as he is a pass-catching tight end, and that should have him on fantasy benches this week. He has fewer than 60 yards in 4 of Dallas's 5 games and is averaging just 4.64 standard league points per game. Even though the reliable tight end pool is shallow, you should be able to do better than Witten. Finally, the defense carousel flies into New Jersey this week on the back of the Baltimore Ravens. They've been mostly effective as a real-life and fantasy group, putting up the 11th most points in standard scoring leagues. The Ravens have 10 sacks and 8 takeaways this season, 6 of which are interceptions. Giants tackles Eric Flowers, Marshall Newhouse, and Will Beatty have struggled to keep edge rushers away from Eli Manning, a weakness the Ravens will be able to exploit. That'll do it for the Week 6 edition of Stardom or Sit 'em. I'll see you all next week for waiver wire advice. Until then, this is Michael Beller wishing you good luck this weekend.
Before we say goodbye for the weekend, this ought to get your heart racing. A new series on Red Bull TV called The Horn follows the world-renowned Swiss search and rescue team known as Air Zermatt. These brave souls traverse the highest peak of the Swiss Alps, the Matterhorn, helping those who need immediate assistance but are trapped high above the clouds. JT Holmes is an extreme skier and stuntman who accompanied Air Zermatt. He sat down with Ryan Aselta earlier this week.
All right, JT, you're an extreme skier, but you're here today to talk about the new Red Bull TV series called The Horn, and this thing is riveting. It details Air Zermatt, the rescue team in the Swiss Alps that helps skiers who are in trouble and danger, saves a ton of lives. Tell us a little bit more about this series, The Horn.
It's amazing television. That team is doing 1,700 rescues a year, and the whole time they're flying around in these helicopters in this really rugged, majestic-looking terrain. I mean, the Matterhorn is probably one of the most beautiful mountains in the world, and they're literally tucked in right at the base of it. The stuff they do, I mean, the very fact of actually going down into a crevasse to get somebody out is a huge amount of danger. It's a wild thing to do. But then if you think about putting the time elements on it, you know, okay, somebody's life is on the line and their situation's only getting worse. So, you know, the way they're able to operate with just surgical precision and, you know, extract people in a matter of, you know, minutes. You know, they're at a hospital within an hour. Right. It's really impressive.
Amazing. They often find them by the smallest of sounds, and then they go from there finding some of the trapped skiers. You can obviously relate to some of those trapped skiers. Your experience in an avalanche buried this past year.
Yeah, that's right. I was entirely buried by an avalanche. And when you're buried by an avalanche, you're unable to breathe, you're unable to move, you can't see anything, and you can't hear anything. I was able to remain positive under there because I knew that I had qualified mountain guides that had seen me, that were coming after me. And that's part of why I have such deep respect for guys like Simon and Sam that will go and put themselves in harm's way to save lives.
People always talk about a moment that changed their life. You were under the snow for 6 minutes, you thought, possibly by the GoPro footage that you were blacked out under there. How have those 6 minutes changed your life?
They give you a greater appreciation for everything that you're doing. Every minute that you live and you get fresh air and you have some kind of a wonderful experience, whether it's with friends and family or it's flying down a mountain or catching a wave or anything, you think about, geez, I sure would have missed out if I hadn't had mountain guides come and save my life that day.
Amazing, amazing stuff. The Horn premieres October 17th on Red Bull TV. JT Holmes, thanks so much for being with us, and stay safe on the mountain.
Absolutely, you got it. And if not, hopefully I've got guys like those from the Air Zermatt team to pick up the pieces if something goes wrong.
Absolutely. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
All right, thanks. Well, apparently Russell Westbrook is done talking about his former teammate Kevin Durant. Well, not completely done. Durant is thrilled to be with his new team.